Hi, this is Abby, and this is a video on Scorpio rising. So, to reiterate what the rising sign is, it was the sign that was on the horizon when you were born. You have to know the exact time of birth in order to calculate it, and you can do so on any website that offers free natal charts. I use astro.com. And if you have a Scorpio rising, you might have had a little bit of a difficult childhood. I'm not going to beat around the bush. The rising sign in general represents how you were raised in your family, how you survived, the expected roles you had, and in adulthood that sort of translates to how you approach every new situation in order to feel most comfortable, because you, in a way, have a certain level of survival that goes into anything new, since you don't know what to expect. So that's when people's rising signs come out. It's also how you look physically, and it's the filter through which all of your other sort of needs and personal traits are filtered through. So like your sun, which is your ego identity, your moon, which is your emotional body, it's all filtered through the mask that is your rising sign. If you have a Scorpio rising, you know too well what survival means, because it's ruled by Pluto, which is the planet of survival, resourcefulness, and transformation. So as a child, you may have had some situations that were difficult where you had to learn to survive. Some Scorpio risings have sexual abuse in their past, in their childhood. I knew a Scorpio rising who was an Aquarius, and she said that she was like straight up, I was molested by my uncle, because as an Aquarius, she just spits it out. But as an adult, she just basically used it to have a sort of like self-protection at all times. You know, she was always fight or flight. And I know another Scorpio rising who lost her father when she was 5. So that changed her entire life, and her entire life has then been based around sort of, as a Virgo sun, she tries to organize and do everything perfect so that nothing that traumatic can ever happen to her again. And she keeps herself very sort of subdued, with this air of like mystery, but also like power. Like, you don't want to mess with her even when you meet her right away, and she's super polite. She's a Virgo, but you can tell you don't want to mess with this person because they have a stinger, which a Scorpion does. So that's sort of Scorpio rising. And they have, if you think about like kind of the goth look, that's the sort of stereotype of a Scorpio rising, is that like the dark hair and dark eyeliner and wearing like black all the time. And a lot of them do, you know, wear that stuff. They love black. Not all Scorpio risings. It's sort of like the caricature of a Scorpio rising, but they're not all like goths and stuff. But all Scorpio risings have a sort of defense mechanism where they go into situations and they sort of have to keep themselves like a poker face on, because they don't want anyone to know their like the chinks in their armor. And that usually comes from a childhood where something happened in order to make them feel like they had to protect themselves for the rest of their life. Not all. Some Scorpio risings were just very loyal. Scorpio is a water sign, and it's a fixed water sign, so it's very loyal and emotionally attached to people, like till death. That's why Scorpio can sort of, any Scorpio sign can get itself involved in codependent relationships or even abusive relationships, because they're like, it's this till death, no matter what. And they can handle, Scorpio can handle pain, tragedy. They're in fact great in times of crisis, because they do not shy away or run from things that the average person would, you know. They don't, like when death happens, they're not afraid to talk about it. They can look things in the eye, like the worst part of the human experience. They can look in the eye, because they have that sort of power, which is amazing when you think about it. But as a water sign, Scorpio just like all of them, feels out a room when it walks into it. Cancer feels out a room to see who is best to talk to, how they can please people, what's the best social way to handle this. Pisces feels out a room and they're just bombarded with all impressions. We'll get to Pisces later, but Scorpio feels out a room and discovers, like, they can see who might be dangerous. Like, they just scope it out and they're like, that person's shady, I'm staying away from that person. This person might be able to give me something I need. Like, they can just read a room and they have a poker face on. And I don't want to make the impression that, like, give the impression that Scorpio is like a manipulative rising sign, or like they go through life trying to get what they want. They can survive if they need to. They are absolute survivalists. But Scorpio rising, Scorpio is not only depicted by the scorpion, it's depicted by the eagle, which flies high, or the phoenix, which can, rise from its own ashes and rebirth. So Scorpio rising can do that, but it also has the ability to be really, like, understanding for someone that's going through something awful. Like, a friend who had a spouse die. The Scorpio rising person is the one that they'll turn to because they will hold their hand during the funeral. They have those deep emotions. They just kind of keep the poker face on so that nobody can hurt them by getting to those emotions. But they can relax with their family, and they are loyal for life. They will they're protective, like, of their children, all that. So they're just kind of a misunderstood rising sign, but they have a lot of good qualities, transformative qualities that they can share with others because of their own experience. So that's Scorpio rising in a nutshell, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. Thank you for watching.